Good afternoon, everyone who have joined us online and through the app or through YouTube. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Thinkly Talks. Hi, Sayan. I'm super excited to be having this session with you today. Yeah, we've actually had Sayan here before, and I believe there were a lot of people that actually enjoyed your AMA session. So, but for the people who are joining us for the first time, I'll just quickly give a short introduction. So he's had a great career, in his field. But in short, Sayan is currently a solutions lead at Adobe, where he's encountering how ADHD interacts with both the flexibility and the unique challenges that are common to developers. And he's currently a solutions lead, like I said, at Adobe and he's also been he had worked in Google, Hotstar, and more. So honestly, I find this a privilege to be here asking questions from our people at the community, as well as just having this time to interact with you. So yeah, hi, how are you feeling today?
Thank you so much. So that's very nice of you. Right now I am working at Adobe, as you mentioned, and I rather have had the privilege of being able to understand these places. And Adobe, as you all know, is one of the best places to work.
Of
So
course.
it is a real treat to get to work there.
And so yeah, I just wanted to know, how was the last session? Did you have fun? How was your experience?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I found it extremely engaging. Like the questions that were asked, and they were like really creative questions over there. And what I feel like I didn't like respond in time, but I just wanted to say that I really thank everybody for their questions. I did like give a blanket response, but I try and be more regular. I've just been it's been a bit challenging right now because I'm moving houses, and like the year has begun again. So
Yes.
I'm not making excuses. It's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So that's why it's been a bit challenging. But yeah, thank you everyone for your participation and for like your wonderful questions.
Yes, we have a lot of people joining in today as well. So without any further, ado, let's get into the topic. But before I jump into the app, I have some personal questions that I would like to ask.
Sure.
First is, how do digital distractions impact people with ADHD differently than neurotypicals? Can you please address a little bit of that?
Sure. So we have to go into this and understand the root cause of how ADHD interactions themselves behave. ADHD individuals may face more severe challenges sometimes because they have heightened digital sensitivity. And this is because essentially ADHDs have dopamine regulation challenges. Dopamine is the reward chemical of our brain, right? It's the reward center of our brain. It's what makes us tick, so to speak, right? I have 4 dogs. If anyone who has pets or dogs, they know when you're training, you need to give them a treat. So dopamine is that treat that our brain gives us. So ADHD have dopamine regulation issues. That's one of the major prevalent theories. Second is obviously we have lower attention, and we have trouble with focus. And even neurotypicals have started reducing their attention spans. Like their attention spans have started reducing rather, and they find it difficult to focus. Right? Like everybody knows, like you take your phone out to search for something on Google, and somehow you end up on Instagram or whatever your favorite website of choice is. Like mine is usually YouTube or WhatsApp. Like even I'll be taking out WhatsApp to message somebody, and I'll end up somewhere else. So yeah, it is possible. It's fair to say that it impacts us more severely due to the nature of our challenges. But technology can be used very well for ADHD as well, because we have, like, when, let's say, when God opens, like closes the door, they open another window or something like that.
Yeah, true. That was a very nice to put it out there for people who are actually new in understanding this topic, right? Because
Right.
I think the most realistic thing was when we open our phone for something and we end up somewhere else.
Yeah,
So at
yeah.
times I open it for something and I'm like right on Instagram. Then what did I open my phone for in the first place? And I put it down again until
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember. So that's a very nice way to put it out there. All right. The next thing that I want to ask you is, let's see. Uh, we can check maybe right away on the app because there are a lot of people that have already started to join in.
Okay.
Okay, before we just look into that, can you like give me a small? I think we've covered this last time, but for the people that are new, how has your journey been overall, and how has like you mentioned, technology actually helps a lot. So how did it help you in person? If you can just give a personal touch to that.
Sure. So I've always been a very technically, like a tech forward, tech first kind of a person, which is quite, if you look at my career, it's quite obvious. But and I also believe in problem solving and things like that. Right? If I see something that I can solve, I will try and get into it. So one of the first things that I did was use technology to, once I got my diagnosis, I got my diagnosis quite late in adulthood. I got it at the age of 32, which is challenging. Adult ADHD is quite challenging. Like, it's usually when you either you haven't been diagnosed as a child and you always have these issues, like some things, and then you get diagnosed, or you had it as a child and you couldn't manage it, and it wasn't being able to manage properly. So I use technology to search every year what I can do, right? And one of the things, I'll just give a quick example, is like, neurotypicals make these things called lists. Like, you go shopping, you make a list. You plan for your day, you make a list. What happens with ADHD, another aspect of ADHD, is time blindness. So for those people who have already worked on their diagnoses, who have read about it, they might be smiling to them like, time blindness. So for neurotypicals who are not aware, but you might have an ADHD friend in your life, time blindness is the inability to visualize how much time something will take. Like, you might find that these friends are always late, or they will put like too much on their calendars. I know I put 10 things on my to-do list for the day, and my wife comes in and she's like, there's no way you'll be able to do this, you're setting yourself up for failure. So rather than a regular checkbox list, what technology helps us is just tweak that a little bit and make it something like a rotating list. Like, it'll have only 3 or 4 things. And whatever is your top priority, you do only that. If you're not able to do that, it moves to the bottom of the list and the next thing comes to the top. So it's like a circular list. So that's one of the technological tools to manage it. And then, of course, you have all your Pomodoro apps and your fidget spinners and stuff like that. If
Yeah,
you go into lower tech.
yeah, that. But do you think fidget spinner really helps? For some reason, it made me more fidgety. Is
Really?
that?
Are you neurotypical, or are you like diagnosed with ADHD? Because I'm actually looking for my fidget spinner right now while I'm talking to you. I got distracted thinking about it. So, like,
Okay.
I have one I can show you. I have a really common one as well, which is the ball bearing one. I think one of
Okay.
my dogs has chewed it. This is one I really like. It looks like
Okay.
the Inception.
That looks strangely weird. I don't know. I've never seen that one. Nice.
Yeah, it looks like the Inception thing where you
Yeah.
spin it to see if you're in a dream or not. And I can just keep spinning it during meetings because I'm listening, but I need something to do. So that
Got
I
it.
can pay full attention to you, like,
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Okay.
that's why my hands are almost never on video. If my hands are on video right now, let me know, because I'll
Yeah.
probably be drawing or fidgeting or
Oh, it's all right. You can have your own time.
no problem.
Yeah.
There is,
So
yeah.
we'll move on to the next question is what role does music play in the interaction between technology and ADHD? Now that's a very interesting question if you'd like to address that.
Sure, sure. So, quick question: are these questions coming up live, or like are our listeners?
No, no, this is not live yet. I'm going to switch up to the app right in a minute. People are just joining in, welcoming. So yeah.
Okay, sure. So, role of music, right? Again, so music really regulates or helps regulate our emotional state, and this is something I think everybody will resonate with. That music can change your emotional state to a large extent, and that's why we have these things called music therapy, right? So it's how you use the music. I personally, like, I have ADHD friends and they taught me these hacks. Like, there are certain kinds of music, like usually it's music without lyric, at least for me and for him as well. It'll be music without lyrics. It'll be beats mostly, complex beats, but they won't have like these distracting lyrics, or there'll be foreign language because we don't understand those lyrics. They're not a problem for us. And certain kinds of music or soundscapes can improve concentration, mood. They can be particularly beneficial for us for enhancing our focus. Like, I have deep focus playlists on Spotify. I have white noise playlists on Spotify, on YouTube. Like, sometimes I'll need a deep focus music. Sometimes I'll, like, if I'm innovating, I will need like a jazzy kind of a it's my personal taste, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll need white noise when I'm just like I'm too tired to even listen to music, and I've just had a very stressful day, but I need to get stuff done, so I'll put in white noise, so that will help relax me. So the important part is that you find what works for you, and like make sure that you try it out, because I think almost everybody listens to music. The important thing to test out here is, especially for this is for my ADHD listeners, right? And this is something I talk about even when like our friend groups are chilling and we are partying. A lot of people will put on these lyrical music, and then you'll notice that conversation sort of gets stifled because you are talking in words, you are talking in coherent, connected concepts, and even the
Right.
song that it's a coherent, connected concept in lyrical prose or lyrical verse rather, and right, like that. So they will start clashing. But if you put on some instrumental music, like you can search for conversational music on YouTube or conversational music on Spotify, you will have these instrumental numbers are easy listening, lo-fi, something like that. So very
Correct.
similar kinds of music will work for you if you have been diagnosed with ADHD when you're working. I mean, I have found it to be so, and it is generally recommended. So yeah,
Right.
that's one way.
That's a very nice way to put it. We have some questions on the app. I think one question by Lavanya you've already covered, as in how technology can play a role. But we'll come to Aisha's question. So she's listening to your Rama very seriously. So, did you not have ADHD when you were a teenager and in your 20s, or did you have it and only discovered it when you were in your 30s?
Wow, that is just a brilliant heart of the matter question. So ADHD comes under, so I'm not a psychologist, I'm just married to one, but I did absorb a lot of stuff after reading my diagnosis. So ADHD is what is known as a neurodevelopmental disorder. Like, I mean, yeah, they're still using that term disorder right now. Like autism is a relatively neutral term, but like, ADHD still contains that, like it contains that sort of a term. We are getting to better terms, but it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means that you probably carried it in your genes. Some sort of event or series of experiences triggered the unlocking of those genes, and then like your development happened in that way. Essentially, an ADHD person's brain structure is pathologically different from a non-ADHD person's brain structure. So it's, if you have been diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, in short, you have always had it.
Okay. Hmm. Yeah. I think that answers her question. I just wanted to know myself, like, so you mentioned about how these specific sets of music can help you, in your individual work, however it is helping you. If you can suggest a couple of type of music that you personally listen to our audience, and that would be, I think, a great help for a lot of people. If you can just mention a couple of channels or maybe podcasts that you listen to on Spotify or something.
Sure, sure. So what I'll do is, I'll tell you the specific ADHD oriented podcasts. Like,
Mhm.
there are productivity podcasts there's one called Hacking Your ADHD. It's available on Spotify. Dr. Andrew Huberman is somebody I respect immensely. He had a very difficult childhood and early adulthood. He actually studied neuroscience and neurology. He's a neurobiologist, right? He studied that to cure himself or help himself, and now he's making all of this. Like, he's a professor at Stanford. He's democratizing his knowledge for everybody. He's there on YouTube. In fact, Dr. Andrew Huberman also has, all of his work has been codified into a custom GPT. So if you have a premium chat GPT subscription, like I do, I have a Dr. Andrew Huberman bot. So I ask him like, hey, I got like 6 hours of sleep last night. I need a productive day. Can you help me? And he, like, not he, the bot will come up with these solutions and with references to the research papers that talk about those studies. Coming back to the music question, some of my favorite music, I'll name three bands or three artists. One is Stavros, Stavroz. Stavros. You'll find them on Spotify. You'll find them on YouTube. There is a band called Shkoon, Shkoon. Arabic music, very nice. So I'm trying to do is I'm trying to cover like a spectrum, because some people may prefer like different music like Bollywood or
Right.
Eastern music, right? So for those who prefer
Yeah.
Bollywood and Eastern music, you might want to listen to Shkoon. Letters is one of their most famous songs. It's Arabic. I don't understand a word of it, but I listen to that song on repeat. So one more thing, I think I've related to a lot of other neurodivergents, which is I will listen to songs for 72 hours straight, the same song. I will keep on listening to it. Some other artists, there is one artist called Tin Licker, Tinlicker. The thing I can recommend for older adults, like my father, for example, he has some attention issues. What he listens to is like all these, old songs, Bollywood songs, but translated into like instrumental. So there is an artist, a pianist called Brian Silas. So
Mm-hmm.
Brian Silas has all like, Kahin dur jab, then like he'll have that on piano. So it's non-lyrical, but it's that same beautiful song. So
Yeah,
so
but
yeah, you can try that.
instrumental. Yeah.
But instrumental, yeah, you can
Yeah.
try Kenny G, you can try Lenny Kravitz, and of course, for those who are into like, if people picked up on the like music that I've shared, please feel free to share your music, and we can sort of have that kind of like a share-a-thon or a share back in one of our upcoming episodes.
Yeah, we can actually do that. It'll be very fun, on the community. If people can just come up and share their ideas as well. Following on that, so like you shared about music, are there any specific apps that can help, in ADHD management?
Yes, there are. So there are different apps. So even for music, like for example, in Spotify, you can. I'm going to talk about features first. Like in Spotify, you have this feature called playlist. So you can search for ADHD playlist. You can search for concentration playlist. Same for YouTube. So apps, I think one of my most useful apps are like Spotify. Then I'm using an app called Obsidian. So Obsidian is an open source technology. It's a note taking app. If you've heard of Notion, if you've heard of Evernote, okay, I'm not being paid by Obsidian to say this. I wish I was, but Obsidian is open source. They store your data on your device. So unlike Notion, so Notion stores your data. Like you take all these notes, right? Let's say you're a writer, you have 100,000 notes. All of your data, which is your content, is being stored by Notion in their cloud servers in a proprietary format, which means you can't access it. If you stop paying for Notion, you download the files, you can't access those information. You have to convert them to other format. Obsidian is great, and please go into YouTube. Everybody, not neurotypical or ADHD, look into what Obsidian is. So I'm trying to set up a second brain inside Obsidian. I've put all my notes in there. You can link your notes to each other. You can link hyperlink URLs. You can add daily reminders. You can add calendars. You can add meetings. Link. It's like the internet inside your laptop. So it's amazing. And it has all these data visualizations where you can start looking at. I don't know if Harry Potter fans will probably relate to this. It's like a pensieve. You can start seeing those connections where yeah, it's very pretty. So Obsidian one is great. Music listening apps like Spotify. There's an app called Brain Focus. Similar apps, you'll find Pomodoro, and my Android listeners will have a lot of apps because Android is very open. You can download like free
Mm-hmm.
apps. Anything that helps you focus, anything that helps you become a little bit more mindful, because mindfulness for ADHD is slightly different. Because I have never been
Right.
able to meditate. It's been very difficult for me to meditate all my life. Like, I was a very active, restless kid. I know I'm digressing a little bit because it's an app conversation, but this is something I want to talk about, which is that you will see all these books like Atomic Habits, you will see all these productivity gurus. See, most of those won't work for you if you have an ADHD diagnosis, because your brain, our brains are different. So, and actually, there is a lot of content out there by ADHD for ADHD. And if you are listening and you resonate with this diagnosis, you resonate with these things, please contribute. Please be an active member of the community and help in repurposing some of these wonderful tools or these paradigms. Like, for example, eat your frog is a paradigm, right? Or like, eat your frog, which is do the toughest task first, first thing in the morning. That is absolute poison for somebody with an ADHD diagnosis, because the thought of eating that frog, like, if I have a major like thing to do for a neurotypical, that's like do that first. But for me, if I just think of doing that first, I will not go to sleep the previous night. I will go to sleep late because I'll be procrastinating. I'll be like, oh, I have to work tomorrow. So let me enjoy today. That's how my thought process goes. And then I'll wake up late and that thing will get pushed because we procrastinate, right? So for ADHD, something like the 10% rule works. If you have to do something huge, just do 10% of it. Just start it. And usually what will happen is you'll get distracted, you'll get hyper focused, and you will complete it, or you will go a huge way into it. So we do live in an like we live in a neurotypical world. It's sort of like I listen to this again. I know it's going on for a while, but I listened to this podcast called where they compared ADHD to being left-handed. So being left-handed in a right-handed world is sort of like, most left-handers are more ambidextrous than most right-handers, simply because the world is designed for right-handers. Like door handles are on the right, so if you're a left-hander, nobody will like open it like this. You have to open it like this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a natural left-hander, and as a kid I was raised to be a right-hander, so I'm actually completely ambidextrous. So I think that has
Wow.
also helped me. But
Yeah.
ADHD is sort of like that. So a lot of advice you'll hear, like meditation, try and remove all these thoughts. I saw a wonderful meme yesterday about ADHD meditation, which is like the moment I sit down to meditate, like when I'm trying to think of ideas, no idea will come in my head. But when I sit down to meditate, all the world's most innovative ideas will start coming into my head, and I'll be like, ugh. So I'll get up, I'll open my phone, I'll take out my Obsidian notes, or I'll open my laptop. To open Obsidian, I will accidentally open WhatsApp or Instagram or some game or some website, and right. So for this, you need these apps. You need like
Yeah.
Pomodoro. There are these apps called Screen Time. There are all these locker apps which will sort of like between this time to this time you can't open certain apps. Those kind of things. Like I have a 15-minute restriction on my Google Chrome, so I'm not a very phone person. Like I am on Instagram. I don't use it a lot. My major drug of choice is Reddit. Like, and that too very little. I like reading books on my phone. So that's one of the biggest protections I have. I'm an avid reader, so I have books on my phone all the time. So if I open my phone, uh, what I would recommend again is that works for me, which is don't stop yourself. Like, don't do this, doesn't work for me. What I'll be like, okay, so yes, I know you're working. Yes, I know you're bored. I'm talking to myself. Yes, I know you're tired. It's tempting to go into Reddit and read that latest, transformer paper or whatever. But let's just take a break. Let's take a 10-minute break and read a book. And I have the book on my phone. It's very easy. So make things easy for yourself is what I would say. So use apps that are designed for specific purposes. So a lot of ADHD apps are there in the market now. So I know it was a long-winded answer, so I'll summarize it. Typical advice doesn't work for ADHD. Like things like
Right.
Atomic Habits, or I'm not saying Atomic Habits is a bad book. I'm reading it myself. I'm repurposing that book. So I'm reading one chapter in a month, and I'm sort of trying to repurpose and fit those habits to myself. Second is try and nudge yourself in the right direction. See, this is not therapeutic advice. Please work with your therapist uh, and your support system, be it your family or your friends, and see what works best for you. But yeah, try and nudge yourself in the right direction. And finally, the 10% rule is gold. It has saved my life. Like usually I would be like, if I have a presentation at 10 a.m., I will probably wake up at 9 a.m. and make it. But now I started the previous day, I will make like a framework of slides, and maybe 9 a.m. I will still wake up, but I will flesh it out and I will get really creative ideas. So it makes like a huge difference. Just knowledge of my diagnosis has enabled me to perform really well at my job at 2023. So like it went like 2021 got my diagnosis, 2022 and 2023. It's just been like this. Thanks to being aware of my diagnosis, thanks to doing the work.
Right.
There is no substitute to the work. Your therapist is not going to give you a silver bullet. They are not going to do
Mm-hmm.
the work for you. Your support system is not going to do the work for you. You will have to do the work, but it pays off. It does pay off. It is, I mean, it is a superpower in some ways. We can do things that most people can't. Like we can sit for 11 hours at a time and chew on a problem, which would like give most people completely brain dead. Like I have finished the Lord of the Rings. The first time I read it, I finished it in I think 16 hours or 20 hours at one go, all three parts. I mean, all
That
six.
is. Yeah.
It works. Like when I got my Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, I remember I didn't get up for 7 hours until the book was finished.
Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, being a reader, I can assure that's like
yeah.
very nice because I can't do that. I love reading, but I can't do that. Yeah, I think that was very motivating. How you summarized it was, I think, extremely motivating for the audience that are here for the awareness. So that was beautiful. Thank you. We have a question from Rajesh. He wants to know, how does social media affect individuals with ADHD? Can it be a distraction or a helpful tool for staying connected?
Excellent question. Thank you, Rajesh, for asking this. I hope you're having a great day. What happens with social media is this feeds into our previous question about digital distractions. See, this also feeds into our previous point about what works for neurotypicals doesn't work for us. There is a flip side, which is what doesn't work for them might actually work. So it's a boon and bane. Boon for us, bane for neurotypicals. Bane for us, boon for neurotypicals, and not related. These are the cases that can happen. So in terms of social media, yes. See, already you have something that is a distraction, right? So social media has three main effects. One is obviously the short term, which is distractibility. Second is the long term mood effect, which is like, let's say, like I never go on LinkedIn unless one of my friends has done something and I have to go and support them and write stuff. Because I don't go on LinkedIn, because the day I'll go on LinkedIn, I'll feel like I have the worst job in the world. The day I go on Instagram, I'll feel like I'm not doing anything in life. I'm not traveling. You know where I'm getting at, right? Social media is all about social signaling. So that has an adverse effect on your long-term effect. So ADHD, one of the major, so we have discussed time blindness. We have discussed executive functional impairment, which essentially means that what something that's very easy for somebody who's neurotypical to do, like step one, step two, step three, is not as easy for ADHD to do, because either they'll go to step 1,000 or they will bounce off at step one. That's called executive functional impairment in a very layman way. Because I'm a layman, I understand it like that, or layperson rather. Finally, there is this thing called emotional dysregulation. So emotional dysregulation has strongly been correlated to ADHD and other similar disorders. They are known as they're related to cluster B disorders. Again, not a psychologist, just read this, worked with my therapist and understood that. So emotional dysregulation is something that can be an issue for you. If you go to social media, you might start feeling bad about yourself. You might have low self-worth. ADHD also experience a lot of imposter syndrome. I know we all experience imposter syndrome, especially because we have social media, right? Because you think, let's say you are a product manager at an X firm, Adobe, let's say, and you're going to social media and you're seeing all these product managers at these, let's say, new startups, your Plums and your Joyos and all of these, and you see that, oh, I went for my vacation to Goa or the Maldives, and this guy went for his vacation to Croatia, and I went with my wife and my in-laws, and this guy seems to have gone with some supermodels. So uh, I'm just joking, but yeah. So you'll start having those comparisons, because that's because, see, everybody behaves like an imposter almost on these social media sites, because that's what it's for. It's for peacocking, it's for social signaling, it's for that. Because you have emotional dysregulation, at that moment your emotions get triggered, and it's like, not to oversimplify, but it's like when you were a child, when you were 8 years old or 10 years old, before your, or even your teenager, when your emotional maturity didn't fully kick in. Even your best friend telling you that, hey, I don't want to talk to you today, I don't feel like it, would make you not feel so good. You would think, is it about me? Did I do or say something? When you were a child. Today, if you're an adult and your best friend phones and says, you call them and you're like, I don't want to talk to you today, or I don't want to talk today, you'll just think, yeah, must be tired, lol, must have had a bad day, lol. We are adults now, right? So I'm not saying that ADHD are like childish or anything. Just please don't misquote me here. But emotional dysregulation happens. So social media, there is that attention level distractibility. There is the long term affect, which is my life is not going anywhere. And of course, finally, like every time there's the memes. Every time I go to Instagram, I don't know how I don't do Instagram. Okay, I don't. But every time I go there, I end up somehow spending 4 hours. I don't know how this happens. I My wife is like, "Have you seen the memes I sent you on Instagram?" I'm like, "No." And I'll open Instagram. Uh, I have lots of, like, my friends sending me memes there. So because I'm ADHD, or sorry, I shouldn't say that, because I have been diagnosed with an ADHD diagnosis label. That's a proper way to say it. But because I have ADHD, I can't rest until I have, all those notifications. It's like 14, 21, 10
Yeah.
messages. It's like a game, right? Because that's what they've done. They've gamified it. And this dopamine rush, every time you see zero notifications, you get that dopamine rush, right? Every time you get a notification, you get a dopamine rush. So there used to be this brilliant Netflix documentary called Social Network or something. So they explored this, that how they got psychologists to sit with your UX designers and design these things. So they are designed to impinge on our brain circuitry. So when somebody who already has a very highly motivated brain circuitry towards stimulation, So that's the second layer, the stimulus layer, right? The affect layer, the stimulus layer, and the distraction layer. So yeah, it can be majorly distracting. However, and this is what I really wanted to talk about, you can fight it, you can beat it. So I have 3 YouTube accounts and I have 2 Instagram accounts. I know they're not for catfishing, in case you're wondering. So one of my YouTube accounts is my personal account, which is like I see whatever I want. It's my personal representation. My second YouTube account is about machine learning, programming, anything. So I don't contaminate it with anything else. I will not listen to music on that account. I will not watch a video on art or history on that account. For that, I have my third account, which is my culture account, where it's about music, it's about art, it's about what I want to learn, right? It's about that other side of myself. As I think my dimensions expand, I will start creating more accounts. And this is something more than anybody else an ADHD diagnosed person will relate to. Because for us, that is where the superpower comes in. Like, for example, I'm sitting on a 4 monitor setup, and a lot of people feel overwhelmed. But for me, it is extremely easy to split my focus and attention between all these 4 monitors. Currently, like there are things going on in my other monitors right now, but I don't think anybody has noticed because that's how I'm used to working. So this is one of the superpowers that you can use. Make multiple Instagram accounts and keep them stratified. I like to call it stratification. So this is how, Rajesh, you can leverage social media. You can leverage these algorithms that are designed to tune into your mind and make you spend and make you think, and use them against their core purposes.
Wow, that's extremely nice. I don't think that just helped Rajesh. It helped me. It helped a bunch of people that are watching, I'm sure.
I hope
Yeah,
so.
because this is something that we all struggle with, right? Even if you are diagnosed with something you aren't, but social media can actually keep you on their apps for hours. So
Yeah.
that's a very nice idea that you've given right there. Uh, I like this question from Alicia, and she's saying that have you ever come across any misconceptions people have about ADHD? It would be great to hear about those.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Alicia. Thank you for asking that again, because see, ADHD has just, if you might have noticed, there has been a surge in the number of ADHD diagnoses in the last 5 years. And that has been because I call it the left-handedness phenomenon. So in the last 40 years, what they discovered was that the number of left-handed people increased from 6% to, I think now it's the normal, I think 30 something percent. And this is because earlier, so even the word for left in Latin is sinister. So
What are the
yeah,
odds?
it's a
Yeah.
very sinister word. So
Yeah.
people used to think that left-handers were agents of the devil. So let's say your son or your daughter has been born a left-hander, you would do everything to quash that devilishness out of them. So ADHD, even a lot of other disorders that were clumped together, what we today call, let's say, ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder, which earlier used to be like called psychopathy, sociopathy, all of like psychopathies and sociopathies fall under those things. So all of these would be under like one roof. Like ADHD used to be like, those children used to be called disruptive. Like I think all of us have watched that movie, the one with Ishan Avasthi, I forget the name. Tare Zameen Par. So that kid has dyslexia. It's not that that kid
Yeah.
doesn't want to work hard. It's not that that kid doesn't want to pay attention. That kid has a condition, a neurodevelopment. Again, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder where their brain is structured differently. And before, dyslexia became a known diagnosis, and things happen 20 years faster in the West or 30 years before in the West, then they come to the developing nations, right? Because that's how things work. Dyslexia was understood. I remember reading Archie comics as a kid where there used to be advertisements about dyslexia, and they would be like, they are not lazy, it's not that they don't work hard, they are not slow, they're not stupid. So many of the most brilliant people in the world, including researchers, entrepreneurs, journalists, writers, are dyslexic. It's just that that condition was not understood before. And I'm going to talk about dyslexia a little bit more because I know this is a
Yeah.
broad audience and a lot of people understand dyslexia. Did you know that just creating a different font style helps a dyslexic person read at the same rate as a non-dyslexic person? Just a different
Wow.
font. Just changing the font a little bit makes a dyslexic person read at the same rate as a non-dyslexic person. Similarly, there is a similar font for ADHD as well. Like all you have to do is alternate the bold of the letters. Like, let's say you have a word letter, so L is bold, E is not bold, T is bold, other T is not bold. It's like this. So it's very easy for an ADHD person to read that. Like they can read it very, very fast with high concentration, because that's how the ADHD concentration is. It's dispersed. And of course, I'm getting into a little bit of history here. But when, like, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 years ago, when we were all Homo sapiens sapiens, hunter gatherers, these neurodivergence, these neurodivergent traits, these people, they served a purpose in the society. They were like, this is called the hunter gatherer gene by some people. There are these theories out there. Today we are in settled societies. Today neurotypicals are sort of like current society, like we said, right? Left-handed, right-handed. Maybe tomorrow society will be structured slightly differently. So yeah, coming back, perception of ADHD has changed from Dennis the Menace and Calvin and Hobbes to more mainstream today. And who knows, maybe we'll see an ADHD superhero, maybe an ADHD Batman, an ADHD. I think Spider Man is a better candidate for ADHD than anybody else.
True, yeah. Tom Holland, especially, is a very suitable
Oh, yeah.
character.
I love Tom Holland. What a guy.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Yeah, that was a very wonderful answer again. I think more than misconceptions, it was fun facts. So I like that better.
Thank you. So, but there are misconceptions. A lot of people see, they hear the disorder part, and like there are generation gaps in knowledge, right? Because our previous generations, they grew up reading see, most of us are not psychologists. Whatever our knowledge comes from is filtered down multiple layers. Like you have your practitioners, like psychologists, psychiatrists, who are at the cutting edge. They will say some things, some papers will be published. Some journalists will then read those papers and try to get circulation by condensing facts from those papers, right? And that's how it works. Like, 1 year you have eggs are bad for you. Next year you have eggs are good for you. Everybody, there's the egg joke, right? Eggs are bad for cholesterol heart, eggs are good for cholesterol heart, like walnuts, everything. It will keep going up and down, right? So a previous generation ago, we had the DSM-4, right? The DSM is like, the DSM and ICD are like these. I don't want to use the word Bible, because that's it's religious and it's about faith. This is a scientific book, but those are the primary scientific references for mental health. And the DSM, like currently we're on the DSM-5 and the DSM-6 is being compiled. So these things change. Like in DSM, I think 3, homosexuality was classified as a mental disorder. So you can understand how human knowledge changes over the years, right? So yeah, I think there are misconceptions still. But like, for example, at Adobe, I'm out about my ADHD. I have been open with my management, and God bless them, my managers, Kiran Vakati and Gavin. They're not going to ever watch this, but I want people to know that my managers are awesome and that Adobe is a great place to work.
Uh, and then there's a question from Rashi, and she's really very curious to know. She's been asking to address a question. Can wearable technology like smartwatches be beneficial for individuals with ADHD? And if so, how?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow, like these questions are so thought provoking. And so see, wearable technology is we have to explore that paradigm. Wearable technology is just your smartphone
Yeah.
on your wrist or on your fingers, like some reduced version of your smartphone on your wrist or your fingers. What is your smartphone? It's a bunch of sensors. It's a bunch of sensors that gather like signals, process those signals into information to give to you. Wearables give us access to more signals. They can access things like our heart rate. They can access things like our SpO2, all of that, right? So one thing I've started using lately is a mood journal, where like throughout the day I get these notifications, how are you feeling, and I journal my mood. And after like a month, I look at my mood, and I will look at my day, and I'll be like, oh, okay, this is why I felt, and stuff like that. So that's making me a bit inward focused, right? So today we know that it's not just IQ and EQ and all of that. There are 8 kinds of, or 9 kinds of actually intelligences. Like there is intrapersonal intelligence, and then there is this thing called interospection. So intrapersonal is how is Sayan talking to Sayan, and interospection, right? How has Sayan been, and how has Sayan's behavior affected Sayan's actions, right? So wearables really help. Like for example, if I have this wearable ring, I'm actually planning on getting one, That's monitoring, let's say, my heart rate. That's like monitoring different signals, my heart rate, my blood glucose, all of those things. They are also correlated to some, let's say, hormonal effects or whatever, and I correlate them to my mood. So basically, we can plonk all that bunch of data onto a graph, and we can see that, oh, okay, that day I had a lot of sugar, which is why I had this carb crash, which affected my mood. Oh, okay, that day I actually ate just half an hour before I went to sleep, which is why when I was sleeping, my heart rate variability was low and my heart rate was very high. So I'm pulling these examples out of my real life. So I see that when I eat like less than 3 hours before I sleep, my heart rate variability is low. The heart rate variability is supposed to be high, and my heart rate during sleeping is quite high, which is not good, which means my heart is beating faster. So for those who are not doctors here, it's like you're driving and you're standing on idle. So, most of your fuel gets kharchofied when you're on idle, or when you're at high speeds, your vehicle is under a lot of pressure. So your heart is the thing that keeps on pumping all the time. You want that thing to pump slowly, because if you look at it like that, you have only a finite number of heartbeats in your life. So jaldi jaldi dhadak gaye, so you are left with less. So yeah, so you can monitor these things. You can monitor like, Arey, yeah, I think kadi chawal at night really does not agree with me. Or like, for example, I'm lactose intolerant. So I'll
Hmm.
be like, okay, I love my ghee roti as much as the next person, but I'll have that in the afternoons from now on. I'll not have it at night. So this is how wearables will help us. Wearables are providing us more insight into ourselves, provided we're using it for ourselves and not for silly things. Again, social signaling ke liye, I've seen a lot of people. I'm lapsing into English because I realize this whole podcast has been in English, and this is supposed to be a English podcast. So I see a lot of these people who do like, यार भागने दौड़ने में भी सोशल सिग्नलिंग कर रहे हैं. मतलब भाई, तू भाग रहा है या तू भाग रही है, अपने हेल्थ के लिए भाग रहा है, उसको अपने व्हाट्सएप या इंस्टाग्राम स्टेटस पे क्यों दिखा रहा है भाई कि तू कितने बजे कितने किलोमीटर भाग के आया है भाई? आई डोंट केयर. व्हाई शुड आई सी इट? What are you trying to tell me? Like, yeah, to do it in private, like, have a competition in Apple. You have that, you can compete with your friends, you can have a contest, like in 1 week you have to burn calories. I think that's a wonderful idea, but doing it just to socially signal, again, not my taste. I'm just like that. So yeah, wearables. Thank you for your wonderful question, Alicia, was it?
No, Rashi.
Rashi, wonderful question, Rashi. Like, these questions, I mean, I'm like, wow, where are these? I mean, I put in a lot of questions in ChatGPT to anticipate what questions I would get, and you guys like are killing ChatGPT. So I think all our jobs are secure for at least like 2 more years.
Yeah, we're doing good. Yeah. Okay. I think we're coming to the end of the session, and it's been super fun. But before we conclude, would you like to give some final advice, or just something to the audience that have joined today? I would love to hear.
Sure. So we will be sharing an infographic, I believe, right? From now on, guys. So what? Not advice. It's a request, like more like a request. So we are only as strong as our community, and we are only as strong as what we do for each other, right? And there have, like, life has shown us, there are so many examples of, let's say, the gay community, the LGBTQIA, or the black community, all of them standing up for each other and finding their voices. I think the neurodivergent community also needs a voice, and the only way we can do it is by supporting each other. Uh, to any developers listening to this, please get in touch with me. I myself am one. I know other developers. We are trying to collab. We are trying to create like these new standards. Like, for example, material design was a standard, right? We can create something like accessible design, where we have like inbuilt, like when you're building a website, you don't have to work extra hard to import an extra font or CSS styling for ADHD or for dyslexia. I've seen some wonderful websites where you can put in ADHD, dyslexia, whatever issue you have, and accessibility issue, visually impaired. Like, you have visually impaired websites, right? That read it out for you. So we want to build for the community, build for all by all, right? That's one. Equity before equality, obviously. You need people in there before. We can't scream and cry that no, the world is not equal for ADHD. Why? Because nobody has come out. You have not come out. You don't have equity. You don't have seats at the table. Why will you have equality, right? Equity needs to be there. And finally, what I really, really want to talk about is that there are some books, there are some experiences that all of us need to contribute towards. All of us need to start reading. Like, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. That's about trauma and how it shapes you. There is a book called The ADHD Superpower. That's an amazing book. You can read that. And yeah, I would love for us to maybe have some sectional readings on this session. I would love for people to comment and question and add in content that we can do in our next. I want this to be a community motivated thing. And Victoria, this is more your department, but if any of our listeners are interested, maybe we can have like one or two or even four of them join in, for the next session, have something like that. Because I feel like the more interactive it is, the more we are participating, the more the voices get heard, the more the flavors come in, the better for us.
Right. I think that's a wonderful idea. Thank you for all the advices, the suggestions, feedbacks, and mostly tips that you have given, and the kind of awareness that you're spreading. For ADHD programmers, ADHD in the field of tech, ADHD just in general. So I really appreciate Sayan your time. And if you go back to the community and you see there are still a lot of questions that are
Yes.
there, you can go back and answer. And I think mainly you can just maybe name those podcasts and books again on the community so that we all have it there and we can all just refer back. I'll also go back and just see the names that you mentioned because couldn't capture them in my
No problem.
mindset.
I
Yeah,
think we
that
have
would
a
be
transcript.
wonderful. Yeah.
We can, okay, so the next session is going to be about AI, guys. How AI can
Mhm.
help you with ADHD. Just dropping that right now. And what we'll do is we will capture the transcript of this podcast and we will use AI to summarize it and form bullet points. So, guys, that's just the thing. Next podcast is definitely going to be about large language models, prompt
Mhm.
engineering. It's going to be a little bit more tech. It's between tech and non-tech, and how we can leverage it for ADHD. Like my life has just gotten better since LLMs have come out,
Yeah.
and hope yours does too.
Yeah, that is awesome. So yeah, guys, you can join the community. It's a very open, friendly community. You can all come in, share your thoughts, share your ideas, and we can keep communicating in the community. I think. Thank you, Science, so much for your time again, for the wonderful session that you've just given to all of us. We'll go back and watch it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for having me, and Thinkley, thank you for giving us all this platform to express ourselves. All the best, everyone.
Yeah. Bye bye. See you.
See you.